My beloved child. There is something I was never meant to tell you, and yet silence has become heavier than the secret itself. The moment Archangel Michael looked upon the path stretching beyond this day, his unwavering strength gave way to tears, not because your story was ending, but because he witnessed a chapter so unexpected that even heaven paused before allowing it to unfold. There were words placed upon his lips, and then taken away. There was a message prepared for you, and then sealed behind a door that was not supposed to open. You have felt it, haven't you? That strange feeling that something invisible has been moving around your life. Not loudly. Not dramatically. More like the quiet shifting of light before dawn, when everything still looks the same, yet nothing truly is. You have tried to explain it away. A coincidence here. A restless night there. An unexpected memory returning without invitation. But deep within, another part of you kept whispering that these moments belonged to a story much larger than the one your eyes could see. What if that whisper was never your imagination? Michael has stood through battles that shaped ages. He has witnessed kingdoms rise, promises broken, and hearts restored. Yet when he was shown the possibility resting ahead of you, he did something almost impossible to imagine. He did not speak. He simply watched, as compassion overcame certainty. Not because your future was filled with tragedy. Because it revealed a kind of redemption that no one expected. That is the part few would understand. Most people believe extraordinary moments arrive like thunder, announcing themselves with unmistakable signs. But heaven often works differently in stories like yours. A single conversation. A delayed decision. A door that refuses to open until another one quietly appears where no wall seemed to exist before. You may already be standing closer to that unseen doorway than you realize. Have you noticed how some disappointments refuse to leave your memory? You questioned why certain dreams dissolved just as they seemed within reach. You wondered why opportunities slipped away despite your best efforts. It felt unfair, even confusing. Yet Michael did not grieve over what you lost. He wept because he saw what those losses quietly protected. There is a profound difference. Sometimes the greatest rescue does not feel like rescue at all. Sometimes it looks like waiting longer than you wished. Sometimes it sounds like silence when you begged for an answer. And sometimes the blessing arrives wearing the disguise of an unanswered prayer. If only you could see what was prevented. Would your heart finally forgive the delays? There are moments when heaven measures mercy differently than we measure success. We count promotions, achievements, applause. Heaven notices character formed in unseen places, kindness offered without recognition, hope preserved after every reason to surrender. Those invisible victories are never forgotten. Not one. Michael understands the weight you have carried without announcing it to the world. The quiet disappointments. The conversations you replayed long after everyone else moved on. The smiles you offered while wondering whether anyone noticed the questions hidden behind your eyes. Compassion has a way of recognizing what words cannot explain. Perhaps that is why his tears were never about weakness. They were about love. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast valley before sunrise. Everything appears covered in shadow. From where you stand, the road seems uncertain, almost unfinished. But above the clouds, the first rays have already touched the highest peaks. Morning has begun somewhere you cannot yet see. Hope often arrives that way, long before it becomes visible. This is why the forbidden message weighs so heavily. It was never withheld to create distance between heaven and you. It was withheld because hearing every detail too soon would tempt you to stop walking before your own courage had fully awakened. Some journeys cannot be carried. They must be lived. And yet, one small fragment escaped the silence. Michael was permitted to remember a single sentence before the rest faded from his memory. Only one. He held onto it as though it were the last ember in a winter storm. It was not about wealth. It was not about fame. It was not even about victory. It was about the person you become when you finally stop measuring your worth by what you have lost. That transformation changed everything. Not only for you. For people whose names you do not yet know. Isn't it remarkable how one healed heart can quietly become shelter for another? Perhaps that is why your story has never been only your own. Perhaps every difficult season has been preparing a kindness you have not yet had the chance to give. Michael saw that ripple traveling farther than anyone expected. And that was when the tears returned. Not because he doubted your strength. Because he understood the price of becoming the person capable of carrying such hope. There is still one question, however, that has not been answered. Why was the message forbidden in the first place? It was not because you were unworthy. It was because hidden within those unwritten words was one truth so astonishing that even Michael was instructed to wait until the appointed moment before anyone could hear it. And that moment may be far closer than anyone imagined. The silence that followed was unlike any Michael had ever known. It was not empty. It was alive, filled with meaning too immense to be spoken before its appointed time. Even in the stillness, he could sense that every ordinary moment of your life was quietly being gathered into a pattern you could not yet recognize. What appeared scattered from your perspective already formed a breathtaking design from above. Have you ever held a piece of stained glass close to your face? All you see are fragments, colors interrupted by dark lines, shapes that seem disconnected. But step back, let the light pass through, and suddenly every broken piece belongs exactly where it was meant to be. Your life has felt like those scattered fragments. Yet heaven has never mistaken them for ruin. That realization stirred something even Michael had not expected. He remembered watching countless souls ask why certain chapters ended before they understood their purpose. Most searched for explanations in the wrong direction, believing that answers always waited behind them. But the deepest answers often stand ahead, patiently waiting for someone brave enough to keep walking until they become visible. Perhaps that is why every ending you mourned quietly became the foundation of a beginning you could not have imagined. There is a reason some prayers seem to echo without reply. Not because they are ignored. Because they are still growing. A seed buried beneath the earth appears forgotten to anyone passing by. Days become weeks. Weeks become seasons. Nothing seems to change. Yet beneath the surface, invisible life stretches downward before it ever reaches upward. Roots first. Then branches. Heaven understands that order better than anyone. Michael's tears returned when he realized how often you mistook hidden growth for unanswered hope. Every season you believed nothing was happening, something essential was taking shape beyond the reach of your sight. What patience calls delay. Love sometimes calls preparation. There was another memory that lingered with him, though he was never certain why it remained when so much else had faded. He remembered a room unlike any place on earth. No walls. No windows. Only light. Countless threads flowed through that light, each one representing moments that seemed insignificant while they were happening. A kind word offered to a stranger. A decision made with integrity when no one was watching. A quiet act of forgiveness that received no applause. Every thread shimmered. None had been forgotten. You have wondered whether the smallest parts of your life truly matter. According to what Michael witnessed, they matter more than anyone realizes. The future he glimpsed was not built upon dramatic miracles alone. It rested upon hundreds of quiet choices that almost seemed too ordinary to notice. Yet together they became something extraordinary. Great destinies rarely arrive all at once. They are woven one faithful moment at a time. And then, Michael noticed something that caused him to stop in astonishment. There were names connected to yours. Faces you had never met. Children laughing. An elderly man smiling with relief. Someone standing again after nearly giving up. A family finding peace after years of division. None of them knew your name yet. Still, somehow, your life became part of their story. This was the mystery he struggled to understand. How could one person's healing ripple across lives separated by distance, time, and circumstance? The answer never arrived in words. It arrived in light. When one candle is lit, it loses nothing by sharing its flame with another. Instead, the darkness simply becomes smaller. Your future carried that kind of quiet influence. Not loud. Not celebrated. But impossible to erase once it began. Perhaps that is why your recent struggles have felt so personal. Growth often asks questions before it offers clarity. It invites you to release old definitions of yourself before revealing the new ones waiting just beyond the horizon. The hardest farewell is often the one we never expected to make. Sometimes we must release the version of ourselves built entirely around fear. Sometimes we outgrow the identity shaped by disappointment. Sometimes the person we have been protecting is the very person we are being invited to become. Michael understood this more deeply than ever before. His tears no longer carried sorrow alone. They carried hope. Hope for the day you would finally look back, not with regret, but with gratitude for roads that once seemed impossible to understand. Still, one mystery remained. As the vision drew toward its end, the brilliance surrounding your future suddenly dimmed, not into darkness, but into a gentle twilight unlike anything Michael had witnessed before. A single figure appeared in the distance. The face could not be seen. The voice could not be heard. Even the name was hidden. Yet everything around that presence changed. Paths that had seemed impossible opened effortlessly. Old burdens fell away without struggle. Hearts long closed began to soften. And your own expression, the one Michael saw from afar, was unlike any he had witnessed before. It was not the smile of someone who had avoided hardship. It was the peace of someone who finally understood why the journey had mattered. Michael reached forward, longing to learn who this mysterious figure was. Before the answer could be revealed, the vision closed. The command returned. The remaining truth was not yet permitted to be spoken. But one question has echoed ever since. Who is the hidden person whose arrival transforms everything Michael witnessed? And why does heaven insist that the meeting cannot happen until one final lesson is learned? The question lingered long after the vision had faded. Who was the hidden figure, and why was even Michael asked to wait? He searched the silence, not with impatience, but with reverence. Some answers cannot be discovered by looking harder. They arrive only when the heart has become spacious enough to receive them. That truth had guided countless moments throughout heaven's story, yet this time it felt deeply personal. Because somehow, your story had become part of that sacred rhythm. If every meaningful encounter has its appointed season, then perhaps the greatest preparation is not finding the right person. It is becoming the right version of yourself before the meeting ever takes place. That thought changed everything. Imagine trying to pour clear water into a cup already filled with yesterday's rain. No matter how pure the new water is, it cannot be received until there is room. Life works much the same way. There are hopes you have prayed for, opportunities you have imagined, relationships you have quietly longed to understand. Yet heaven sometimes creates space before it delivers fulfillment. Not as punishment, but as mercy. Empty hands can receive gifts that full hands would accidentally reject. Michael saw seasons of your life through that lens. The disappointments that once seemed random now carried a different meaning. Not every closed chapter was a loss. Some were invitations to let go of expectations too small for what was ahead. That realization brought an unexpected peace. Not because every question had been answered. Because the questions themselves no longer felt like enemies. There is remarkable freedom in realizing that uncertainty is not always a sign that something is wrong. Sometimes it is simply evidence that the next page has not yet been turned. And pages have a way of revealing themselves only after the previous one has been fully lived. Then another memory returned. Not a vision. A sound. It was unlike music, yet every note seemed alive. It carried neither words nor commands, but something gentler, a reminder that every act of quiet faithfulness leaves an echo beyond what human ears can hear. Michael listened. Within those echoes were moments from your life you almost forgot. The day you chose kindness when frustration would have been easier. The apology you offered without knowing whether it would be accepted. The encouragement you gave while carrying burdens of your own. The dream you refused to abandon completely, even after disappointment whispered that it was time. None of those moments appeared extraordinary at the time. Yet heaven remembered every one. Sometimes the smallest decisions become the hinges upon which entire futures quietly turn. That is why nothing rooted in genuine love is ever wasted. Not a word. Not a tear. Not a single act of compassion offered when no audience was watching. Michael understood this, but there was one detail that still puzzled him. The hidden figure had never stood alone. Behind that unseen presence stretched countless paths branching in every direction, each illuminated by choices that had not yet been made. That surprised him. The future was not a rigid script carved into stone. It was more like a beautiful melody waiting for willing hearts to continue the song. There were possibilities. There was freedom. There was grace meeting every sincere step. This was never about predicting tomorrow with perfect certainty. It was about revealing that hope remains alive in every faithful decision made today. The vision had shown potential wrapped in purpose, not a guarantee written beyond change. Perhaps that is what made Michael's tears so meaningful. He saw not only what could be. He saw how deeply every loving choice mattered. You may wonder whether one decision can truly alter the direction of a life. Consider a ship crossing a vast ocean. A single adjustment of the compass seems almost invisible in the moment. Yet after weeks of travel, that tiny correction leads to an entirely different shore. So it is with the heart. Gentle choices, repeated faithfully, often accomplish what dramatic moments never could. There is another reason the message remained unfinished. Michael sensed that if every detail had been revealed, you might become so focused on the destination that you would overlook the beauty quietly unfolding along the way. Joy is rarely found only at the finish line. It grows beside the road, waiting for eyes willing to notice it. The laughter shared unexpectedly. The stranger whose words arrive exactly when needed. The sunrise that appears ordinary until it reminds you that every dawn is another beginning. These are not interruptions to your journey. They are part of it. As the memory neared its end, something remarkable happened. The hidden figure turned slightly. Not enough for the face to be seen. Only enough for one hand to become visible. It was extended toward you. Not pulling. Not pushing. Simply waiting. An invitation without pressure. A promise without force. Michael understood then that heaven never compels love. It offers it. Again and again. Patiently. Faithfully. With every passing season. He reached once more toward the final truth. This time, a single word crossed the silence before everything disappeared. Not a name. Not an explanation. Just one word. Remember. Remember what? The vision gave no answer. The light receded. The silence returned. Yet that single word refused to fade, as though it carried the key to everything still hidden. Remember. The question is no longer whether the future holds hope. The question is what forgotten truth that one word is calling back to your heart. Because when that memory awakens, the identity of the hidden figure, the reason for Michael's tears, and the secret heaven has protected from the beginning may finally become clear. Remember. The word did not echo through the heavens. It echoed through you. Michael understood that this was no ordinary reminder. It was an invitation to recover something that had never truly been lost. Only buried beneath disappointment, distraction, and the relentless pace of ordinary days. There are truths that do not vanish when forgotten. They wait, quietly, until the soul is ready to recognize them again. Perhaps that is why certain memories return without warning. A familiar song. The scent of rain on warm earth. A place you have not visited in years. A conversation that suddenly means something entirely different than it did before. These moments are more than nostalgia. They are gentle knocks upon the door of the heart, asking whether you are willing to see your own story with new eyes. Michael watched those moments gather around your life like tiny lights appearing one by one at dusk. Alone, each seemed insignificant. Together, they revealed a path. Not the kind drawn on a map. The kind discovered only by walking it. He realized that the future he had glimpsed was never separated from your past. The two were connected by threads so delicate that most people overlooked them completely. The kindness you nearly forgot giving. The courage you dismissed as just getting through another day. The quiet decision to begin again after believing you had nothing left. Those were not isolated moments. They were the foundation. It is easy to believe that life changes because of one dramatic event. Sometimes it does. More often, however, it changes because of countless quiet decisions that no one applauds. A heart softened instead of hardened. A bitter word left unspoken. A hand extended before being asked. These are the moments that reshape a future from the inside out. Michael's tears came again, not from sadness, but from awe. He saw how often heaven celebrates what the world barely notices. There was another part of the vision he had almost overlooked. It was not a place. It was a pause. Everything in the vision had been moving, light, paths, voices too distant to understand. Then, for the briefest instant, everything became perfectly still. In that stillness, your reflection appeared. Not as others had described you. Not as your fears had defined you. Not as your past mistakes insisted you would always be. You stood free from every label that had ever tried to become your identity. No shame. No comparison. No unfinished sentence hanging over your life. Just quiet dignity. Michael could scarcely believe what he was seeing. He had witnessed victories that shook kingdoms, yet this simple moment carried a different kind of power. The greatest transformation was not happening around you. It was happening within you. How many people spend their lives searching for a new destination while carrying an old understanding of themselves? Even if every outward circumstance changed, the journey would remain incomplete until the heart learned to see itself through the light of grace instead of the shadow of regret. That was the hidden lesson. Not hidden because it was complicated. Hidden because it is easy to overlook. The world often tells you to become more before believing you are enough. Heaven whispers something gentler. Grow, yes. Learn, certainly. But never confuse your value with your victories or your failures. Your worth has never depended on either. That truth was so luminous that even Michael lowered his eyes for a moment, overwhelmed by its beauty. Then the vision shifted once more. The hidden figure was there again. Closer this time. Not close enough to reveal every answer. Only close enough for one unmistakable detail. The figure was smiling. Not with excitement. Not with relief. With recognition. As though the meeting had been anticipated long before either of you understood why. Michael searched for another clue. Instead, he noticed something extraordinary. The distance between you and the figure was growing smaller. Not because the figure was rushing toward you. Because you were already moving forward, one unseen step at a time. Every act of patience. Every choice to forgive. Every quiet moment of hope. Every decision to keep loving when life offered no immediate reward. Those steps were carrying you nearer than you realized. You have wondered whether your ordinary days matter. The vision answered without speaking. Every faithful step changes the distance. Every day shapes the meeting. Every quiet act of love prepares the heart for what comes next. Then something happened that Michael had never witnessed before. The light surrounding the hidden figure expanded until it touched places far beyond your own path. It reached strangers, families, communities, lives that seemed completely unrelated. One faithful life became the beginning of hope for countless others. Not through perfection, through compassion. The future Michael saw was never about one extraordinary person standing above everyone else. It was about an ordinary heart choosing extraordinary love again and again. And perhaps that is the greatest miracle of all. Just as he believed one final answer would be revealed, the vision trembled. Not with fear. With anticipation. A voice, gentle beyond description, spoke only a single sentence before the light closed once more. When the final veil is lifted, you will understand why none of your tears were ever wasted. The vision ended. Michael remained still. Not because there was nothing left to discover, but because he realized the final veil had already begun to move. And somewhere, just beyond what your eyes can presently see, the first glimpse of what was once forbidden is already drawing closer. The veil did not lift all at once. It never does. Morning does not rush the horizon. A flower does not bloom because someone demands it. The deepest transformations unfold with quiet patience, revealing themselves only when the heart has grown strong enough to recognize what was there all along. Michael remained where the vision had ended. Not searching. Not striving. Simply watching. Then, almost imperceptibly, the light returned. This time it carried no hidden symbols. No distant mysteries. No unanswered riddles. Only clarity. The hidden figure stepped forward one final time. The face, so carefully concealed throughout the journey, was finally revealed. And Michael did not weep because he recognized a stranger. He wept because he recognized you. Not the version shaped by fear. Not the version weighed down by regret. Not the version that believed every setback had diminished its worth. He saw the person you had been growing into through every unseen act of courage, every quiet decision to forgive, every moment you chose hope instead of despair. The greatest revelation was never about meeting someone else. It was about becoming someone new without losing the goodness that had always lived within you. Suddenly, every unanswered prayer looked different. Every delay carried new meaning. Every closed door became part of a path that had protected, prepared, and refined your heart in ways you could never have measured while living through them. Michael understood why the message had been forbidden. If he had revealed the ending too soon, you might have spent your days chasing certainty instead of embracing growth. You might have waited for extraordinary signs while overlooking the quiet miracles unfolding in ordinary moments. You might have searched for your future without noticing that it was already taking shape inside the choices you made each day. Heaven had never hidden hope from you. It had hidden the ending so that your faith, your compassion, and your character could become part of the story itself. The tears Michael shed were never tears of sorrow. They were tears of reverence. He had witnessed strength that did not announce itself. Kindness that expected nothing in return. A heart that stumbled, rose again, and continued walking even when the destination could not yet be seen. That kind of courage changes more than one life. It quietly gives others permission to believe again. Perhaps someone you encourage tomorrow will one day become the answer to another person's prayer. Perhaps a word you almost choose not to speak will become the turning point in someone else's story. Perhaps the kindness that seems unnoticed today will travel farther than you will ever know. Light has always worked that way. It does not ask how much darkness surrounds it. It simply shines. Michael looked once more across the horizon that had first brought tears to his eyes. Nothing about it seemed frightening now. It was beautiful. Not because every challenge had disappeared. Because every challenge had found its place within a greater purpose. The future was never a prize waiting at the end of the road. It was the person being formed with every faithful step along the way. And in that realization, the final silence became a blessing rather than a mystery. Before the vision faded forever, one last message was entrusted to Michael, not to predict tomorrow, but to encourage every heart that would one day hear this story. It was simple. When you cannot see the whole path, choose the next good step. When you cannot carry every burden, carry compassion. When you cannot answer every question, remain faithful to love. The light will meet you there. Then the heavens grew still. The vision gently dissolved. The tears upon Michael's face became a quiet smile. Not because every secret had been spoken, but because the most important one had. Your future is not defined by fear. It is shaped, day by day, by the love you choose to live, the grace you choose to receive, and the hope you choose to keep alive. And perhaps that is the message that was never truly forbidden. It was simply waiting. For the moment your heart was ready to hear it.